Welcome everybody to Menopause Supports with Marks and Spencer. My name is Sinead McNamara. I'm the organizer of the National Menopause Summit. And this is part 3 of a 4-part series that we've done as a run into the event, where I'm chatting with some of our incredible speakers. So this evening we have with us Loretta Dignam, and Loretta is a titan in terms of menopause advocacy in this country. And is the founder and CEO of the Menopause Hub. So she's got a great story. So we're delighted to share that with everybody this evening. So officially welcome, Loretta. It's great to have the chats.
You don't realise how relieved I am to be having this chat.
I know. Honestly, I was about to bounce the iPhone, the laptop and everything off the walls here, quite frankly, because patience wouldn't be one of my strong points, and patience around technology, zero. It needs to work instantly or there's going to be trouble.
Well, listen, it's great to see you. And listen, thank you for describing me as a titan.
You're welcome.
Not a word I would use to describe myself, but then, you know, us women are always very modest, aren't we?
We are always modest, indeed.
Yeah. So great to see you. And listen, congratulations on organising the first National Menopause Summit. I think the fact that it's sold out is fantastic. The lineup looks great. Having Davina McCall is brilliant. And when we started our conversations a few months ago, I didn't realise it was going to be so big, so successful, that you'd have M&S and Marks and Spencer on board, etc. So well done. It's fantastic. I'm really excited and really looking forward to it.
Fantastic, Loretta. I feel a bit, and Shell, my business partner, you know Shell, of course, it feels a little bit like how many sleeps now till Santa arrives. It really does. You know, it's been an absolute joy to work on, and everybody has been so fantastic, yourself and all of the speakers and everyone involved. So it really has been a labor of love. And I know people say that, but I really do mean it. It's just kind of hard to believe that now it's like
happening.
This time next week, it's tomorrow. You're just like, what? Yeah. After all of the months of planning. So wait till when we kick off here, Loretta, okay? And I know I said this to you when we were chatting the other day about what it is we talk about. I love your stories about trying to, back in the day when the old menopause symptoms started to hit you hard. Could you describe to us the kind of symptoms that you had, and also describe to us the lengths you had to go to in a vacuum of information to manage those symptoms?
Yeah. So basically I was 49 when I had what was to be my last period. Now I didn't know that was my last period, obviously, until 12 months later.
Yes.
But very soon after that I got hot flushes, and so then I went, oh my God, I'm menopausal. And my first reaction was, I'm way too young for this. How could this possibly be? Surely this happens to women in their late 50s and 60s. And my perception of a menopausal woman was something quite different than what I could identify with. So that was my first thought. My second one was, oh my goodness, you know, what do I do? What am I supposed to do? How do I handle this? And I would have considered, and this is only 6 or 7 years ago. So not really that long ago. And so when I was thinking about it, I was going, right, you know, none of my friends were talking about it. Nobody was really openly talking about it. So I thought, well, consult Dr. Google.
No,
and
yes.
I thought to Dr. Google. Yeah, and of course that threw up all sorts of conflicting information. Don't take HRT, take HRT. You know, all sorts of myths, and it was so confusing and difficult to navigate. Meanwhile, the hot flushes were going on. So I would have had 20 or 30 hot flushes a day, every day.
God.
I would have had night sweats. I would have had hot flushes at night. The duvet was on and off. I love my sleep. Like, I'm a great sleeper. So broken sleep was a big deal for me. But because they were the only two things I knew about menopause, I completely, I wouldn't say I missed, because I did experience them, all the symptoms in my 40s that were to do with perimenopause. So, for example, I developed headaches and focal migraines. So my GP sent me for a brain scan. And luckily that came back clear, but no mention of menopause or perimenopause. I had UTIs, urinary tract infections, to beat the band. I was permanently on antibiotics, be on them for 6 months. Then I'd come off them, get thrush. Then I'd be on some, you know, anyway, the cycle continues. I had what what we call incontinence, but like just leak. So leaks when if I laughed, coughed, or sneezed, that's called stress incontinence, or urge incontinence, trying to go to the loo, putting the key in the door, that kind of thing. Getting up to go to the loo in the night. And of course, I saw my mother like that, and we were sort of brought up never to pass the toilet, because run in and go, because you never know. And so as a result, I thought, oh, that's genetic, or it's hereditary, or it's because I've had two children, blah blah blah. But I also had dizziness, I had palpitations, I had brain fog, I had dry eye, and I ended up in the A&E department 3 times.
Oh my
and
God.
The first time I had it, it was so painful. I actually thought maybe I had a brain tumor. Now, that is not exaggerating. And when they said to me dry eye, I said, what? Something so simple? And they said, yeah. Nobody mentioned perimenopause or menopause. I went to the ophthalmologist and I said to him, he said, oh yeah, we see that a lot in women of your age. No mention of menopause or perimenopause.
Unreal. You swear sorry, can I jump in here for a second? You swear you were talking about 40 years
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, so this list goes on, and I developed asthma, I developed sinusitis. I was sick with that all the time. Then eventually I was diagnosed with asthma, and sat in the dentist chair, receding gums. I then had acne. I thought, well, not acne, but bad spots. And I was thinking, God, I thought I left this behind in my teens.
Yeah.
Now, the only things I had also fatigue. I described myself as a slow puncture. So the air was just seeping out of me, or not the energy was just seeping out of me. And then the other thing was I lost my mojo, is the only thing I can describe it. Do you know what I mean? So mojo, va-va-voom, joie de vivre, whatever you want to call it, my get up and go. And I remember saying to a woman I was talking to, and she said, look, Loretta, you're so high energy anyway that, even a small drop in your energy as you age probably, is a big drop to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be it,
Yeah.
So what did I had pains in my ankles. Who would have thought that was to do with menopause?
And can I ask you, Loretta, how, and I know this is kind of a rhetorical question, how were you managing your life and because you had very serious roles, you had a great marketing career behind you before you were involved in setting up the Menopause Hub. How were you managing, let's talk about your job for a second, with the pressure you would have been under and thinking you must be half dying or something on the side here with all of these symptoms? How was that working out for you?
Well, I just think that as women, we tend to, keep going. We put up, we shut up, we don't complain, we just kind of get on with it. And I just, kept trying to keep going.
Yeah.
And I was a single parent. I reared my 2 children myself. And so, I also had to do all the household and all the rest and whatever. And I guess, I just felt I was dragging myself through life. That's all I can describe it as.
Yeah.
But I thought, it's stress, I have a lot on my plate. My parents are aging. My mother's in a nursing home. I've got teenage children.
Yeah.
I've got a full-time job outside the home.
Yeah, like kind of sort of almost, sure, why wouldn't you be falling?
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd go to the parent-teacher meetings, and I'd be in the hall, and I'd get this dizziness, and I'd be like, oh, you must be exhausted, it's stress. And I blamed everything. And then any pains and aches were blamed on age. And when I went to the GP, I said, why am I sick all the time? And he said, oh, you're having a bad run of it. A bad run of it. I had an asthma attack that was undiagnosed. I had an asthma attack that was undiagnosed in the pharmacy collecting my medication. And I had to be brought back in and given oxygen. And I'm thinking, nobody mentioned even asthma, let alone menopause, perimenopause. So I just kept going. And I dragged myself through life. And it was only when I got the hot flushes and whatever that I realised it was menopause. And then I went to see somebody because I was terrified of HRT, based on no information, I might add.
Yeah, just based on what was floating around in the ether at the time. Yeah, absolutely.
And I also had this kind of thought in my head, strong women power through. I'm going to power through. Yeah. My mother powered through. Other women powered through. Now, when I had my children, when I went into the Coombe, I almost knocked down the porter at the front desk trying to ask for the epidural. Do you know what I mean? So I wasn't going to, power through childbirth. I've taken everything that I could. So somehow or another, menopause was different because nobody talked about it. So eventually I felt I was giving in, looking for help. So when I went to that appointment, it was an hour long. It was much more expensive than your typical GP appointment, than even a consultant's appointment. But I left knowing all those things including the pains in my ankles. Because when this doctor said to me, any aches and pains? And I said, oh no. And he said to me, any pains in your ankles? And I said, yes. How do you know about those? I just couldn't believe someone would know about these.
Yes, yeah.
So that was an enlightenment for me. And then I got to learn that HRT was much safer than I'd thought, that the risks and the benefits need to be weighed up, that I weighed up the risks and the benefits, and the benefits far outweighed the risks for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Then I found out about long-term health, bone disease, so the risk of osteoporosis, osteopenia. I found out about the risk of heart disease, the #1 killer of women globally and in Ireland. Then I found out about Alzheimer's, and I'm going, you mean all of these are ahead as well? So I decided I'm going on HRT. So I felt empowered with information to make that decision. So I started on estrogen, then a progesterone, all bioidentical, body identical, nature identical, which is the latest versions of HRT, made to mimic exactly the female hormone. And then after 3 months, I went back and things had improved, but I still didn't have my va-va-voom back. I didn't have my mojo. I didn't have my libido. So I went on testosterone.
Right, okay.
And that to me was kind of, and I know I've heard Davina McCall and people say the missing piece of the jigsaw, but for me it was.
Right.
And vaginal estrogen
Yeah.
to help with vaginal dryness. Now, if you'd said to me, Loretta, do you have vaginal dryness? I'd say no. But I had these UTIs, urinary tract infections. So I obviously had some lack of lubrication.
Yeah.
So I started to feel fantastic. And I did a few things, and you're going to laugh at these, but I will come on to the things. I went and actually got my eyebrows threaded, and my eyebrows started growing back because they'd started to disappear. And I remember writing a review on their Facebook page saying, amazing, my eyebrows are growing back. I got a new face cream, and everyone was saying, God, you look amazing. So it must be the new face cream. I didn't realise it was the HRT.
Yeah.
And people were saying to me, you look great.
Yeah.
And I was great. But in the meantime, not to hog the story, I did try multiple things because I wanted to be au naturel.
Of course. I've been waiting for this. Please share with everyone the natural things. Ladies, brace yourselves because these are brilliant. Go.
So now I did try sage, and at one stage I was.
What were you doing with sage?
I was like, and sure, like nothing. The flushes, hot flushes were still there because it was for hot flushes. Then I tried this, my Lady Care magnet.
That's the magnet. I didn't know what they looked like. Interesting.
Very powerful magnet, I might add.
Okay.
So I put it in my underwear under my belly button, and I've met many women who have done this as well. And a woman in talk yesterday, she said she thought it was brilliant. Personally, all that happened was when I went to the supermarket, the wire basket went whoom, and it stuck in it. And the chain for the trolley, whoom. And I'd be looking around going, Jesus, did anybody see that?
How much are those knicker magnets, as a matter of fact?
€35 in beans. Well, they might be gone up with inflation. And this is for sale, barely used, if anyone wants.
Yes, I'm sure. I can see the comments flooding in and the offers flooding in, Loretta. That's so absolutely.
And you know, my doctors in the Menopause Hub would say to me, Loretta, where was the evidence for that? And I said, well, there was a few Google reviews that were very positive. And they said to me, that's not evidence. Where's the science? And I said, look, I was desperate. And that's what I actually think is that women are vulnerable at this point, going through all their symptoms. And because of that, women want to, try things. And we're terrified of HRT, hormone replacement therapy. So we'll try anything.
Yes.
And, all I just say is let the buyer beware.
Yeah.
Be careful of what's being sold to you. And I do think there was a lot of people hopping on the bandwagon trying to sell us snake oil and so on. But to be honest, if something works for you, I'm not going to knock that.
Yeah,
absolutely. Who am I to judge?
Yeah.
So I'll just say that's my personal experience. And so now all my symptoms are gone, I'm delighted to say, and I'm still on my HRT. And that prompted me to start talking to more women about how they were feeling, how they were managing. And that led me to the set up of the Menopause Hub. Right. So that's a long-winded answer.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. And I'll just interject here to say, in terms of my whole sort of ethos, if you like, around the event, and I always say this, while it's a free country and people are obviously free to manage their menopause in whatever way they see fit, it was very important for me, and I know we discussed this back in the day when we had our original conversations, that what we were presenting was fact-based, clinician-led you know, information for our delegates on the day. So, you know, stuff that is peer reviewed, that has been proven scientifically to work, so that we can give the very best information. Because exactly as you said, Loretta, people can feel scared and people can feel vulnerable, and then you end up throwing a low. I mean, you could go down to the pharmacy and in the blink of an eye spend €120 on supplements. Now, I'm not an anti-supplement person. In my kitchen here on top of the microwave, there's vitamin D and there's cod liver oil and there's all kinds of stuff. But personally speaking, I'm not going to depend on that to manage my menopause in the long term. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's
I've
important
done
that information.
Yeah, I've done a lot of research and tried a lot of different things. And for one webinar I was doing during lockdown, we used to do one called midweek menopause, and you know, at the height of the lockdown, I actually went to a health food shop, or a very good health food shop, and I said, I have menopausal symptoms, and I listed off the symptoms that I had. I don't have them anymore, obviously. And I was given different things for each symptom.
Right.
And so I did leave with €120 worth of stuff. Now, if that's what women want to do, that's absolutely fine. But I guess what I suppose I find irritating from time to time is that there's sort of camps developing between, the HRT camp and the non-HRT camp and all this kind of thing. My view on it is, first of all, menopause has been secret and taboo for the last 2015 years or whatever, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
In the past, women were took to the bed with, for no reason that we could see.
And
they suffered.
Written off. And I think you were kind of meant to be happy to be written off.
Yeah.
It's over for you now, so good luck.
Yeah. Women then also, they were suffering with their nerves.
Yes.
In years gone by, they were put in asylums, which they're not called anymore, but in psychiatric institutions. They were seen as insane, hysterical, all this kind of thing, right? So as far as I'm concerned, all conversation about menopause is welcome.
Yeah.
People I've heard say there's too much focus on HRT. My thing is, women don't need to suffer in silence anymore. There's lots of options open. And whether the conversation is all about supplements, it's all about HRT, it's all about, I actually really don't care.
As long as the conversation is being had.
Exactly. And as long as women know, and women can go and trial things and decide for themselves what suits them, what works for them, etc. So the fact that people say to me, I heard a doctor saying to me, there's too many people coming to me self-diagnosing with menopause, and it's not menopause, it's thyroid or whatever. Or they're telling me, they want HRT, and people feel there's a FOMO, a fear of missing out on HRT and all this kind of thing. And I say, bring it all on, because there's been silence.
Exactly.
And therefore, the pendulum will swing very far the other way before it eventually comes back to the middle.
Of course, always the case in everything new and new concepts in human history. It always goes this way, from here to here, and then it finds eventually that balance. So I completely agree with you.
And the values of the Menopause Hub are education, empathy, and empowerment. And education is to educate women about this, what's happening to them, so they don't think they're going mad, they don't think they're getting early rheumatoid arthritis, they don't think they're having a heart attack.
Or they're like I was thinking genuinely back in March, April of 2020, and I've said this on a couple of interviews myself, and I'm not remotely joking, I thought I was developing early onset dementia.
We hear about this. Women going to neurologists and getting checks and things like that. So you hear all this, right? And as far as I'm concerned, women to be educated about what's happening to them, to identify what this is. We don't need a pat in our head and somebody to tell us there, get on with it. So it's a thing, it's real. It's not in your head, it's not your imagination. And then the third thing is empowerment. So get your information, we'll give you information. And people say to me, I didn't get HRT at your clinic or something. I say, we're not a HRT clinic, we're a menopause clinic. Or say, I was offered HRT, well, we're a menopause clinic, so there's lots of options available. So, do you know what I mean? And so to my mind, it's empowerment, and it's if you have the information to make the decision that's right for you.
Knowledge is power, isn't it, Loretta?
100%.
If you know what the facts are, and then you can choose to, and I'm being tried for a moment here, eat all the sage you like. Just as long as you're eating the sage, knowing the facts,
Yes.
then that's absolutely fine. You're making an informed decision then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for example, with supplements, because some women are terrified of the risks of HRT, which are lower than we think. But with supplements, for example, the strength of supplements is somewhere between 100 to 1,000th the strength of the estrogen that we're putting back in our bodies through HRT and what our bodies have lost. Also, HRT, hormone replacement therapy, is about a third to a fifth less strong than the contraceptive pill.
Yes.
And women are quite happy to pop the contraceptive pill in for 10 years, 20 years, or whatever.
Indeed, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Women are happy to smoke, to drink, to be overweight, to be obese, all these other things that are lifestyle risks.
Yeah.
So I just think, inform ourselves. I had to do that the hard way, is the reason.
Yeah.
And that's the reason I set up the Menopause Hub, is so that I could help women shortcut the 7 years of my life.
Of potential suffering and wandering around in the dark, isn't it, Loretta? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Going, what the hell? Why put in that time?
Yes.
So you can get to your solutions in a much more effective fashion. And you know, the funny thing is that when I said this again quite recently, I think on the Irish Times Women's Podcast, which we did a couple of weeks ago. You know, when I was 35, 36. In around that age, I'm 54 now. HRT was the dirtiest word on planet Earth. And I mean, obviously I wasn't in the market at that point because I had a kind of a typical menopause, if you like. So I wasn't in the market for HRT. But I remember walking around Lucan at the time. I lived there and my sister lived there, and she's 3 years younger than me, going, I don't care what anybody says. When my time comes, I'll be going on HRT, because my attitude, and this is just a personal attitude, was I'm after spending the last 20 years on the pill, you know what I mean? So why would I, you know, so you know, that was absolutely my position on it. But I mean, of course, as we know from, I know this and you know this, Loretta, in your business there, and I know it from speaking to the likes of Kiva and Deirdre. Of course, the research that was done years ago around HRT was interpreted incorrectly. The sample group were not the correct sample group, and somebody jumped to a conclusion based on a whole lot of very strange, wrong information and ran with it. And then, of course, like everything, these things take off like wildfire.
But I can tell you, my position was completely different. My position was, I didn't go on the pill. I'd been on the pill, but it didn't really suit me. And so I was never on the pill for most of my life. How I only have 2 children is really a miracle, but it's great.
Yeah.
Something worked. But is that
prayer. Was it prayer, Loretta?
Prayer. Absolutely. And the other thing was that I was terrified of HRT. And I wouldn't even consider it. Until after 3 years, when I felt I could see no end in sight, and they were only the symptoms I was aware of.
Yes.
So it was the hot flushes, really, and the fatigue. And so then it was only when I got the information and it was presented to me. And what I found frustrating is when I was going to a GP surgery for any visits or whatever, there was always lots of information. And no offense to anyone who has an obscure illness, but all these leaflets about very obscure illnesses. And yet menopause, you know, every woman will experience menopause.
Yes.
She only about 80% will have symptoms, but every woman will experience menopause. Not everyone will be pregnant or anything like that. And yet there wasn't one piece of literature in the doctor's surgery.
And another thing on that note, which I always found quite curious as well, I have to say, once I came into my menopause, you know, I mean, there's no problem anybody talking about prostate cancer or prostate examinations, or how's your prostate, or, you know, what's happening with your prostate. No problem with that at all. But again, back to the old school routine of don't mention the menopause. Jesus, at the risk of death, don't mention the menopause. But an interesting thing as well, and again, just speaking from my own experience, Loretta, with HRT, absolutely amazing for sure, but can be a little bit of a journey to find the system that works for you. So I always say this to people if they're interested in knowing my experience, or even, I suppose, generally, it's not a case that you go on HRT on a Wednesday and on Friday you're back to your old self overnight. It doesn't work like that. And for me, as I say, I went on to HRT. I'd kind of had my last, well, I was in perimenopause for the year before, and periods were becoming extremely scarce and all of that kind of stuff. So when I went on HRT, I was on a particular product, and that worked for a while, and then I changed over to the patches. And I would say, while I did see improvement for sure as the time went on, it took about it took me personally about 1.5 years to get back to a point where I went, okay, I feel like I'm back to myself now. It certainly wasn't an instant fix. And I think it's really important that people know that as well. You know, it's not take this, stick this on your leg, or use that gel and Jesus, by next Wednesday, you'll be flying, you'll be back to the way you were. So it can be trial and error, and it's a bit of a journey in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd say, like, even in my own instance, it took me, like, after my first 3 month review, I still wasn't whatever right. So my estrogen was increased. Then I went on to it, and my testosterone was added in then.
Yes.
And I started to see the benefits. Menopause, like periods, like puberty, is different for everybody.
Of course.
And therefore the treatment options are different. So we would have women in the clinic who feel amazing, like, you know, within a day, or, you know, within a week or whatever. Yeah. And so that can happen. Then others can be with us for quite some time, coming back for reviews, getting the dosage, getting the delivery method, meaning whether it's a patch or a gel or a cream, getting it done. Oh, I don't know if that lady was supposed to be joining, really. Is she? She asked to join. I don't know what to do about that.
I should not. Oh, she would have asked you, so it doesn't matter.
Anyway, yeah. So yes. So what we did was, so it can be trial and error, which isn't for women. What's the word? Very not very reassuring, but it can be worth it in the end.
Yeah.
I just saw a question there that came up, which was a great question, and it said something about periods and blood tests. She has all the symptoms. So I'm not a medic, as you know. However, I do know some things, and I do know the basics. And the basics that I know are that once you're 45 years of age or over, you don't need to have blood tests to determine perimenopause or menopausal status.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that the hormones, particularly in perimenopause, are fluctuating all over the place.
It's just hard to tell on any particular day. It could be different, isn't that?
Or hour.
Yeah, or hour. Yeah.
So they're not particularly useful. If your periods have stopped, then you don't, and you're in the age of 45 to 51 and above, and then you don't need a blood test to tell you that you're you know, in menopause.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. However, if you're under the age of 45, so maybe early 40s, late 30s, you know, late 20s, whatever, the doctors will do a blood test, hormonal profiling, on day 2 to 5 of your cycle to check out your symptoms. And to check out what's going on, and that may be a determinant. But it's on day 2 to 5, and it's a particular hormone profiling panel of bloods.
Right.
And what I would say to women is that, you know, we hear back from women in our clinic, and they tell us that they've been to the GP, and the GP said, I've done the bloods, you're fine, you're not menopausal, you're grand. And then the women think, but I have all these symptoms, so they think I must be going mad. And then what they say then is, oh, you're halfway through. You're three quarters the way through, you're only a third of the way through, you're out the other side, all this kind of thing. You can't actually tell that. You may be that one day, but the next day you may be something different. So that's the first thing. And so therefore, if your doctor offers you blood tests, then how, you know, then they're not useful. Yeah. They might want to check other things, thyroid, and, you know, other things to rule out other things. The other thing just to say as well is that in terms of the blood tests, women say to us, well, then how does the doctor know what to prescribe? And then the doctors, so what happens is the doctors treat women and their symptoms, not blood tests. You and I could have the same results, but could have completely different symptoms, or you might have none and I might have some. And so therefore you have to treat the woman, the individual, and their symptoms. So that's the answer.
Right.
Somebody else asked another question there. Can I flick onto that or not?
Oh, please do. Go ahead, for sure.
Yeah. Somebody else said, if you stopped HRT for 10 years, can you go back on HRT? Well, I think the answer is it depends on your overall health, depends on how old you are. And so you're saying, so if you were, it depends on your age. If you were, say, 50 and you're on HRT for 10 years and you came off it, and now you're 70, the doctors will be probably more reluctant to prescribe that because your body has been so long without estrogen. But I can't say that for definite because it relies on a number of different factors. So you would really have to have a conversation with a medic who understands this. But there is what they call an estrogen window of opportunity, which is before the age of 60 or 10 years since your last period. as a rough rule of thumb.
Yeah.
And if you haven't started HRT before then, it's particularly the estrogen, then it becomes a bit more risky to start it after that. It doesn't mean it's impossible, but it means that, you know, you would have to be, you know, considered by the medic who maybe specialises in hormones, and to see about the rest of your risk factors and so on. So it's that estrogen window of opportunity that's, you know, more than 10 years since your last period or over the age of 60. So just bear that in mind for anybody who's listening. Not to say that, you know, you may not want to do HRT, but if you are considering it, that's something to consider.
Yeah. And you know, I thought we'd touch on as well, Loretta, just briefly, because I'm just conscious of the time now. It's 7:30, although our audience are staying with us, so that's good. Obviously, the event is split up into menopause and the workplace, and then the journey through menopause. And you're going to speak in the morning as part of the menopause, the workplace piece. So, would you like to let everybody know about the kind of work that, I mean, I'm a big advocate for introducing a new norm across the Irish workplace. We all know, and I'm sure everybody's aware of the kind of, or that the workplace can become, not for everybody, but can become an extremely challenging environment for women in menopause, particularly if it's, you know, it's not something that's quite obviously openly discussed in the office. And let's be honest, that's a relatively new phenomenon. So you do a lot of work as well as with your, as part of your menopause hub, you do work in terms of educating organizations. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, and just to say, the reason I do this is I've been a woman working in the corporate, worked in the worked all my adult life outside the home, and then secondly, I was on the board of the Abbey Theatre for 6 years, and one of the roles I had when I was there is I chaired their gender equality, and we had a problem because the 2016 centenary programme for theatre was announced, and there was one play in it by a woman, written by a woman, and that was touring schools. So quite right. I'd only literally joined the board 6 weeks, right? So, and this happened, and quite rightly so, there was a huge uproar about it or whatever. And the Abbey wasn't the only, you know, guilty party in this. There was the theatre sector in general, would have been as not very gender balanced, particularly in the area of playwriting and some of the other roles. So anyway, I became the chair of the Gender Equality Committee, and we did work, a few of us did work in implementing and putting in place a policy and a programme and everything. And I saw the power of that to make changes for women around equality in theatre, not only for the Abbey, our national theatre, but also for the wider theatre community. And it gave me a bit of an insight into, wow, you know, change can happen if you approach it in the right way.
Yeah.
But also prompted me, plus IBEC invited me to various events where I thought menopause would never be discussed. I thought people would ignore the stand I was at, but actually there was huge engagement. So what we offer is we offer assistance and help to organisations to make themselves menopause friendly. And what I mean by that is we offer training. So we offer face-to-face training, whether it's virtual or in person, for all colleagues, awareness training. We offer training for managers through workshops, kind of in breakout group scenarios. We offer training for HR, and we offer called menopause champions. And they're like the concept of mental health first aiders. They're people who are going to champion the workplace, be a listening ear, be a signposter, and they can organise events and help embed menopause into the culture of the organisation. So we offer that, and then we also offer, and I've developed the first e-learning programmes for those 4 key audiences as well, which is self-directed learning, and it's all CPD, continuous professional development.
Brilliant. Yeah.
We're working with a huge number of organisations. Legal Ireland and Northern Ireland have partnered with us, and they've rolled out a menopause policy. They've rolled out the training for their staff. They pay for consultations for the staff at our clinic.
Yeah, they're actually attending the event as well.
Yeah,
so brilliant. Yeah.
I mean, they're looking at pension age. They've said you can retire at whatever age you want. All sorts of things. Accenture have partnered with us. We're working with Post, with Dublin Bus. We're working with UCD.
It's so fantastic though, Loretta, isn't it? Like to get that word out there and change the culture in organizations so that women do feel supported and empowered, because so many people, and I know you did the research with IBEC, you know, if they can't actually leave their job, a lot of people go, how am I going to get out of this? I have to get away from this. No one's listening to me. I'm struggling here. And of course, we're always, you know, in competition with the younger crew coming up and all the rest, and we're trying to hold on to our positions and everything. So it's a seismic change, menopause awareness in organizations. And of course, as you know, and I know myself, what was also wonderful was the fact that God bless on Garda Síochána introduced it as well, which is just, I mean, who would have said 10 years ago that would have happened, Loretta? You know, incredible.
This conference on whatever day was, Monday was for UCD held it for on menopause, dedicated to menopause for the day for the third level sector. So the thing happening out there. Do you know what I think is fantastic? And I say to organizations, you need to engage male allies, because we can't have this as a woman's issue, another woman's issue, women sitting in the corner, you know, we're focused on this. We need to engage men. 50% of the population will experience menopause. The other 50% may be impacted by it.
Exactly.
Directly, whether it's at home or in the workplace. And today I was doing a program, and you know, there was men there engaged. And what men, the questions that men typically ask is, how can I support my partner at home, or or you know, what can I do? And the reality is that I say is that, look, realistically, you don't need to go and slap a label on a woman's head because she's over. Say, well, you're menopausal, and how's your menopause going? That would be wrong. But what we do is we should be, as good leaders or great leaders, we should be engaging with our staff anyway. We should be checking in with them. How are things going? How can you support them, help them, etc. And so therefore the things you can say is, you know, maybe if somebody doesn't seem to be themselves, or seems tarder than usual, or something seems to be happening, then maybe what we should be saying, the lineman saying, look, you know, is everything okay?
Yeah.
Is there anything we can do to help at this point? What can we do to help you now?
Yeah.
And a husband or a partner can say that to their wife.
Yes.
What can we do to help you right now? And it's the individual, because they're the one experiencing the symptoms, and their symptoms vary from woman to woman, that they'll be best placed to tell you what they are.
Yeah.
And they can be reasonable accommodations, they can be reasonable adjustments that don't have to cost the earth. And on top of that, they will prevent huge talent loss. 1 in 10 women in Ireland and leaving work because have left work because of their symptoms.
I know, it's insane. And I mean, it's at the point that this is kicking in for most people and becoming a serious problem for most people. It's when you're at the zenith of your job or your career. You have, you know, potentially 25 years experience behind you. One of the great advantages of getting a bit older is that a little bit of wisdom kicks in as well. And as you say, Loretta, it becomes a point then where it isn't just a woman's problem. It's a problem for the economy. It's a problem for organizations. It's a problem for retaining staff and knowledge. It's a huge problem. And I was also just going to make one other point, and you touched on it there as well. So we have Joanne, my lighting system here in my top of the range studio is letting me down, here on my chair in my sitting room. We have Joanne Healy, as you know, speaking at the event, and Joanne is, just to let everybody know, the group head of group employee relations at Bank of Ireland, and she's a fantastic advocate for introducing supports into the bank. So Bank of Ireland, God bless them, are in a position where they can offer women 10 days paid menopause leave a year, which is absolutely fantastic and should be lauded and celebrated. But the point is, menopause supports and menopause awareness in your organization can be tailored to what your organization can manage. So no one is suggesting for 1 second that everybody on the planet should be in a position, because they're not, to financially be able to carry that. But even as you say, Loretta, having somebody in the office who is your menopause champion, doesn't have to be a member of your HR team or anything like that, where is identified as the person that you can have a chat with should you be struggling. So at least there's somewhere that you can go and discuss how you're feeling and get all of that out on the table. So incredibly important.
100%, it really is. And we're dealing with large organizations, small organizations, private, publics, not for profit, for profit, all that kind of thing. And realistically, there are small, reasonable accommodations that will help women. And you see, you know, not everybody's in an office job. We're dealing with people, bus drivers.
Absolutely. Forgive me 1 second. I'm just going to plug in my phone here because it's going to die. Carry on, Loretta. Sorry, go ahead.
Don't bother. We're getting a look around your house.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh,
There's a look around my
no, they're nurses on their feet all day. They're teachers.
Yeah.
They're air traffic controllers. They're women working on a factory floor, a production floor, etc. So the workplace and the roles need to be looked at through the lens of a menopausal woman. Some risk assessments may need to be done, because what women told us are the top 5 symptoms. So if anyone's experiencing these in the workplace, or at home for that matter, but in the workplace, you'll realize you're not alone. The first one is cognitive issues. So memory loss, lack of focus, concentration, brain fog.
Yeah.
And if you've had that, like cotton wool in your head, you just kind of feel like you have to shake your head. You can't
get. Well, that, and again, sorry to jump in on you. That hit me like a steam train coming at you at 500 miles an hour. That floored me.
Yeah.
That led me to believe, as I was saying earlier, that I was developing early onset dementia. And outside of the potential, which is so lovely, of early onset dementia, any self-confidence or self-esteem or belief I had in myself. I always think about this in terms of learning geography in school. Remember, they went through coastal erosion.
Oh, yeah.
And coastal erosion. I think about sinkholes. You see those on the telly, like in the States, houses falling into these big holes in the ground. I was falling into a hole in the ground. It's so, and sorry, and I'll just mention this as well, Loretta. For me, back in 2020, even though I had a good handle on menopause symptoms, and I have some wonderful friends who are a bit older than me, so they went through menopause earlier than I did. One of them is on, I see her here, went through menopause earlier than me. So I kind of had a little bit of a schooling, to be fair, but I didn't really understand about the cognitive problems. People mentioned menopause brain, and I can't remember such and such his name, but I don't know. I wasn't that aware of it. So as a result of that, even though I absolutely knew I was in menopause, no question, but the whole cognitive thing was so debilitating. I thought this isn't menopause. This is something way darker and more ominous and scary than that. It's a huge problem.
It is very frightening. And the more we talk with women in workplaces, and so the number is 3/4 of women said that was their number one symptom.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible.
One symptom. And when I go and we do talks, there's women nodding and everything. And what they say is that they feel that they're second guessing themselves, that they're double guessing themselves. They're, thinking that they're less than.
Totally. I mean, we do suffer from imposter syndrome anyway, Loretta, and am I only speaking for myself here? Hands up. We do spend a lot of our time, a lot of our lives suffering from imposter syndrome. But when you get to a point, and again, I'm just speaking about myself, where I can't effectively handle my Google Diary, where I am literally putting in Zoom calls, because of course this was during lockdown, and I'm putting appointments into the wrong, not even the wrong week, the wrong bloody month, and looking like a gobshite, getting messages, where are you? Do you know what I mean? And again, look, I could talk about that particular symptom all night, because I really thought I'm done. I mean, I remember thinking at the time, and no disrespect to anybody who mows a lawn for a living at all, fair play to you, I thought I'm going to have to do something that is completely one-dimensional, doing this all day or something, because I can't manage. And I had no concept at all that this. And what you're saying is so interesting to me, that what you say, 3/4 of women or 2/3 of women said that's the major problem.
75%.
No concept of that. Yeah. No concept of that. So that's a big problem.
Data now, to be honest. I didn't expect it to be that high.
Yeah.
I didn't expect it to be the first symptom, but it is being backed up every time I talk to women.
Wow.
Women then say is that they then lose confidence. They say, well, maybe I'll step back. I won't go for that promotion.
Yeah.
Maybe I will work less, go to shorter week. Maybe actually I'll take early retirement.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just leave altogether.
Yes.
This is the narrative. The next biggest symptom after that is fatigue and no energy. And that's in 66% of cases. And women, are already at the pin of their collar. They're the sandwich generation, elderly parents or relatives, children, teenagers, full-time, part-time work, trying to run the home, trying to do it all as we always do,
Yeah.
or do anyway. And therefore they're fatigued, and they think, and so the insomnia, or then being kept awake for the night sweats, or the hot flushes, or going to the loo, whatever it is, then impacts the brain fog, then mood, makes people irritable, and it becomes this kind of vicious cycle.
Yes.
So after that, which is 66%, is fatigue and no energy. The next one after that is feeling overwhelmed. 57% of women reported feeling overwhelmed. 55% said anxiety.
Yeah.
Now, if you've never had anxiety before and you get it for the first time, it can be really frightening. And these women say to us they think they're going mad. And if you go to, begin antidepressants, because you've mentioned mood, which seems to be happening a lot, then that's sort of, well, maybe I am. Or if you're told there's nothing wrong, then definitely you must be.
Yeah.
Or if your family are kind of questioning you and so on. So anxiety is a big one in 55% of cases. And hot flushes is down to only 46%.
Yeah, it's gas, isn't it? That hot flushes is the one that gets the most airtime, really, isn't it? It's like hot flushes, hot flushes. Everybody knows about hot flushes, but and it's easy to see as well how brain fog could very potentially lead to anxiety. For me, it led to some level of depression and some level of hopelessness. But it's easy to see how that could flip into serious anxiety. Absolutely.
Yeah. They're really what women are telling us, and I hear it like everywhere I go. I see the people nodding their heads, and then they're saying, look, what things can we do? And so it's to talk to your employer, either, well, what can you do for yourself? Can you use software to help you with, reminders, meeting minutes be recorded? Can they be issued very quickly? Can there be certain things that can be done the way that you can actually set these reminders for yourself? And can you use software and technology to help yourself? There are some of the things. But for example, I was talking to some nurses, and they were saying that they do the medicines trolley, and they were saying that with not having slept for nights on end, brain fog, fatigue, all the rest, that they sometimes feel that, they're worried they'll make a mistake.
Yes.
So,
I mean, that's like serious implications for people's welfare. And we have, as you know, Loretta, Karen McGann, who's the president of the INMO, is speaking at the event. And they, as you know, too, they did research. I think it was before COVID. And, I mean, again, I've never been in the business of saving lives. That's not my business. You know what I mean? I know you're a commercial person as well, but I can't even imagine feeling the way I did back in March, April of 2020, and delivering babies, administering pharmaceuticals, or working in ICU and feeling like this. I mean, you would be second guessing yourself, wouldn't even go to describe the pressure you'd be under. Desperate.
They've set informal networks amongst their colleagues for other people to help them out, and them to help other people out, and so on. But the reality is some of those things need to be formalized now.
Absolutely.
Organizations need to be looking through the lens of menopause to see what needs to be done for these colleagues, and why risk assessment might be necessary. Now, the other thing is, women have said to me, listen, Loretta, don't you think we have a bad enough rap? Don't you think, employers don't want to employ us because we have babies, we have periods, we have to go on maternity leave, then we have to do childcare, then our children are sick, and then we're getting to the age where our children might be sort of half grown up, and then you be declaring ourselves as menopausal? You must be joking. I absolutely hear them when they say that. However, my view is that, society, we would have said about mental health, well, you can't be bringing mental health into it.
Exactly.
Women used to have to give up their jobs when they got married. Now you can stay.
And look, the fact is, someone has to have the babies, and the way the species is designed, it's women. Someone has to have the periods to have the babies, and again, it's women.
Or the hormones.
And it's exactly. And I mean, as you said yourself at the beginning, and we all know this, and I've said this a number of times, 50% of the population of the world, should they be lucky enough to live to this point in life, are going to go through menopause, just as naturally or as predictable as people living to 12, 13 years of age and going to puberty. So we have to accommodate for that. And my other little soapbox as well, Loretta, these days, we're living in a world that is fueled on inclusion and diversity. And our voices need to be heard. They will be heard. they will be heard. So there's accommodations, rightly so, made for all kinds of people. But you know, this is menopause. This is going to be with us forever. This is an issue, and it, you know, our voices will be heard, and that's it.
So I do say to women, you know, what's the alternative? I think the statistics are so overwhelmingly that we employers will want to do something. So
yes.
That's the way it is. So that's my response to that, because I know lots of people, you know, might be thinking that.
Yeah. And also, employers do want to create a culture that is going to attract the very best talent. And you know, there's, and let's be honest, in the current economy, there are more positions available than there are good candidates to go for them. So you need to set out your stall in a way that is attractive to potential employees. So that makes sense. But Loretta, look, thank you so much for your time this evening. You're so generous. It's 1952, about to fall down with the hunger now and go and have some dinner.
I say one last thing. Sorry, somebody, I look up your site or whatever. So if you're interested in menopause in the workplace training, you can go to the menopausehub.ie.
Absolutely.
Called the Menopause Academy. So you can go there and find out about that. In addition, just last week with Great Place to Work, we launched the Menopause Friendly Award.
Yes. Fabulous.
You can also find out about that. Link to the put in your submission if you'd like to be considered for those awards. And if you want general information about menopause and so on, or clinical stuff or appointments, it's just the menopausehub.ie as well. So listen, thank you everyone for listening in. I hope you found that useful. And thank you very much, Sinead, for inviting me.
You're welcome. A fantastic chat, Loretta. Let me just say one thing before we sign off, just to mention to everybody that the last in our 4-part series will happen, fingers crossed, next Monday at 7 p.m. Menopause Supports with Marks and Spencer. And I will be speaking to Sally Ann Brady, who is the wonderful lady who started up the Irish Menopause support group, who are on Facebook and Insta back in 2018. Similar to Loretta in that, where do I get information? Somebody help me here. And took it upon herself, God bless her, to do that. And she has over 49,000, isn't it?
Yeah,
49,000 members, and it's a really supportive community. So I'll be speaking to Sally Ann next week. But Loretta, look, let's go and have some food before we fall down. Thank you so much for your time this evening, and I will talk to you soon. And thank you everybody for joining us.